Hi parents, this is Oscar Staton coming to you to give you one quick tip that you can use at home now that you are homeschooling. It's really important that we go over at least one tip. I'm going to give you one tip today that you can do with your child. So let's go ahead and get into it. So parents, what we're doing now is that you carry the burden of homeschooling and making sure that your child has what they need educationally with the aid of your teacher. Now, in my experience over the last 20 something years in teaching, I've always had parents tell me that how concerned they are or how afraid they are that they're going to mess up their child in some way because they teach something incorrectly or what have you. But the thing is that what I've always told parents is you're their first teacher, so whatever you're doing, you can't be that far off. But I'm going to go over some essentials that you definitely need depending on the age group and the age of your child. So I am coming from a perspective of a elementary teacher. So my expertise is in second, third, fourth grade. And so one of the things that, even first actually, and one of the first things that we teach our children is how to skip count. And that's a very important thing that you can do with them at home now. So, and you don't need many materials. So one of the first things, and again, depending on the age of the child, one of the first things that I do with my child who's 6 years old right now is that I make sure that he knows how to count by the ones unit. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So after he learns how to do that, I go into the tens and I make sure he learns how to count by tens. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. And then after that, I make sure he knows how to count by hundreds. So 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900. And I line it up just the way that you see on there. The next thing, and depending on here's the other thing. It doesn't necessarily go by grade level. You know your kid. If you work with your kid on numbers, you will see right away their potential and how far they can go. So my child, I already have him doing the thousands. So I taught him to go 1,000, 2,000, and this is where you teach that you count from the back 3 digits. You call them digits. So 1, 2, 3, comma. So for every 1,000, we go 1, 2, 3, comma. So 3,000 is the next one. So from the back, 0, 0, 0, comma. 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, and 9,000. Okay, so you have that, and again, depending on the ability of your child, if you want to challenge your child, if you think that your child is ready for this, then you can even go into the 10,000s. So the next one would be 10,000s, and then you know the drill. You would do the same thing for the 10,000s, and then if you're working with a fourth, fifth, sixth grader and above, you can go to the 100,000s. So 100,000, 200,000, and so on. And I don't have the room, but here's where you teach them 1,000,000. So after that, you would have 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1,000,000. And so here's where you start to teach the millions. So you teach them, okay, count by threes. Every 3 is a comma. 1, 2, 3, comma. 1, 2, 3, comma. So we made up to 1,000,000. And again, This is dependent on the ability of your child, the comprehension level of your child. So one of the basic things that I like to make sure, especially with the groups I've had, when we get into third grade and we start multiplication, I'll give you this tip. One of the things that parents like to do is, well, I shouldn't generalize, not all parents, but I've had a few parents that one of the things that they like to do is to teach their child the multiplication tables, to memorize the multiplication tables. And so I'll have a student come in and tell me, Maestro, I know what 3 times 7 is. 3 times 7 is 21. And so I congratulate them. It's all good and dandy, but we haven't even gotten into the multiplication concepts. And I ask the child to tell me what that means, and they can't tell me. And so that's something difficult that I don't necessarily agree that we should teach our kids to just memorize things without having a deeper understanding, because it becomes more solid and real if they're taught the concept first. They've learned in first and second grade the concept of addition, subtraction, and in some ways multiplication and division, but they don't really have a grasp of it. When they really get a strong grasp of it is in third grade, generally. And so that's the time when I like to first teach the multiplication concept, and then we start learning what 3 times 7 means, what that means. So after teaching your child the basics of counting by ones, counting by tens, counting by hundreds, and maybe even 1,000, the next thing I like to do is be able to start giving them assignments where they skip count. And this is where addition comes in, and it's a great way to practice the additions. So one of the first things that I do is ask them to be able to skip count by 2. So they start out with maybe 0. So they'll start with 0, and I'll ask them that the next one is 2, and so they skip 1. So you go 2, 3, 4, and so on. So I ask them to start writing their numbers this way. And as they're doing this, I'm assisting them to make sure that they're counting correctly when they get to the 20s, when they get to the 30s, when they get to the 40s, and especially when they get past the 2 digits, like after the 90s, they'll get into the hundreds. So we want to make sure that they know how to do that. So, for example, they'll go 92, 94, 96, 98, and sometimes they'll get stuck, and sometimes they'll know what to do. So it's something that we would assist them with, and how to get into the hundreds, and then how to get into the 110s, 120s, and so on. So that is definitely something that you could start teaching at home if your child doesn't already have that comprehension. Then the next activity that you can do with them is count by 3s. So hopefully you have a notebook at home that you can use for something like this. And so you start with 0, and you go 3, 6, and you teach them along the way that they're skip counting. So 6, 7, 8, 9, and you could do this with them. And then 10, 11, 12, and then 13, 14, 15. You could do it like that. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and so on. You could ask them to make tally marks that way to be able to do that. The next challenge would be your 5s. So you could move on to your 5s and do 0. So you start with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. And so as you're doing this, and you can do it with the 4s as well, with the 4s, with the 5s, with the 6s, with the 7s. As you're doing this, you're in the method of skip counting that you're doing, you're actually teaching them multiplication concepts, and they may not they may not know that they're doing multiplication. So whenever they get to the times tables and learning what 3 times 7 is, they'll already have an understanding. Because once in the classroom, once we get to the deeper concepts of multiplication and division, what I do is that I present it to them as as repeated addition and subtraction. I correlate the multiplication to addition, and I correlate the division to subtraction. And so they have that connection there, and they see that it's all related. And so anyway, my point is, these are activities that you can be doing with them right now. These are assignments that they can do to start honing in on that the addition facts, the subtraction facts, and even the multiplication and division. So I hope this tip has helped you. I really appreciate your like, and please subscribe if you can, and just go ahead and watch any of these videos here. I hope these will help. My channel is all about education and helping parents and helping students. So